Welcome to the HSP and Neurodivergent Podcast. I'm Julie Bjelland, and I'm here with
Willow McIntosh. A pleasure to be here.
It's good to see you, Willow. It's so fun to have our weekly conversations.
Yes, it is so good to be talking regularly. I love it.
So, how have you been? Actually, it's been a couple of weeks since I talked to you. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been good. I have been enjoying the island coming alive where I am, just off the coast of Athens in Greece. It starts to get really busy now this time of year, but I'm kind of hidden up in the top of the mountain, so top of the island. Sorry, not really a mountain here. It's higher up here, but it's not really a mountain. So I kind of get to be in the stillness and the calm, and then I can go down into the madness of the sun cream and the beach umbrellas and the fun of it all. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
And you've been snorkeling. Sometimes you sent me something amazing that you saw. That's so cool. I just think that is so much fun.
Yes, goodness me. Yes, the other day, as I'm snorkeling 2 or 3 times a day, and the other day there's this kind of like channel that goes between these reeds in this sort of shallow part of the beach where I go to, which is really quiet. And as I was going round, I came round the corner and I noticed under the rock I thought it was like a plant initially, but I realized it wasn't a plant. It was I'd never seen one of these before. It was probably the size of like maybe a basketball, like its full shape. But it was basically like this fish with all of these kind of feathers like coming out of its body, like a lion's mane, essentially.
That must have been. I bet you had such a sense of awe in that moment.
Yeah, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Honestly, I was really blown away. I was, in this, as you say, this sort of moment of awe, and I, got really close because I wanted to sort of inspect this thing, and the feathers are kind of the best description. Then almost like spines on the end of its feathers, and it was interesting because the other fish that were coming round the rock were sort of coming round like, what's over there, and like, whoa. And they'd see this fish and then kind of go the other way. It was like, okay, this is your territory. I'll keep going. And yeah, so I spent some moments just with this fish, just being there with it, and it blew this kind of like it looked directly in my face, and it blew this sort of like, it made its mouth into an O, and then fired this kind of water at me. I think it was just breathing, but it was a real moment of connection that I had with this fish. It was.
Oh, that's interesting that you say that that's what the fish that I spend time with every morning do. They kind of do that where they open their mouth big and kind of blow. And I feel like they're communicating to me, like, because they do that every morning. They want their little treat. Sometimes I throw them a little shrimp or something. And that's pretty neat. That is so exciting that you got to have that encounter. Isn't it incredible to think about like all the incredible creatures that are in the ocean and all the different shapes and sizes and colors? I mean, it's almost hard to imagine that that's the case. It's just, what a beautiful expression of diversity.
Yeah, exactly. It really was. Yeah. I mean, it looked like, if I had to imagine the most craziest fish that I had to draw or design, I probably wouldn't have come close to that. I really had no idea that these things existed. So obviously I was Googling it afterwards, especially and always fascinated by what's written in the animal medicine and the spiritual meaning of animals. I always find that really interesting to read that. And it was a lionfish. And as I was telling you recently, it's not supposed to be in the Mediterranean. They've traveled from afar. But they are highly poisonous, these fish. So it was lucky that I didn't get too close because I was just fascinated by its beauty. I'd sort of get it attached to my
Wow.
face, sort of running down the road, screaming. Fortunately, that didn't happen. There wasn't any. I didn't.
That's good that didn't happen.
I didn't sort of disturb it too much. Fortunately,
Oh
but
my God. How
yeah,
incredible to have that experience. I love snorkeling so much. I can't wait to do more of it. That was very neat. Yeah, I've
yeah.
been good. Made it through the graduation last week, and then a couple days ago we published the children's book for sensitive and neurodivergent children. And one of the things, Willow, that is so cool about this is I've actually been hearing from adults too about how much this book means to them. And it comes down to the concept we're going to talk today about feeling flawed. And it's so many of us have felt flawed for our sensitivities, for our differences, for not fitting into the social norm box. And I think that would be such a neat thing for us to talk about today. I know both of us have experienced that feeling of being flawed. And I think about another thing that's very exciting, and this actually I feel like tells us the direction of where we're going in the world, is that the children's book went #1 in new releases for children's books. And this is a
Wow.
children's book about, I mean, isn't that incredible? Because this is a children's book about about being neurodivergent, about being sensitive, about and we know there's so many of us that are just craving to have this representation, and this representation and the characters and things. It's going to make a difference, and I believe it's going to have a potential to raise sensitive and neurodivergent children, like a whole generation of taking away that feeling of being flawed. And I have so much to say about this, Willow. It's gonna be interesting to talk about today.
I'm so excited. Honestly, I just think it's amazing that, first of all, how the rankings have responded to this book, because it's obviously something that is really resonating for people. It's time that it's out there. And just how important it is that this information can be assimilated by the next generation. I think I've been really thinking about this recently, how the stories that are told about ourselves, or the way in which we interpret conditioning and upbringing when we're little, and how that then turns into lifelong belief systems and programs that just don't serve us and keep us hidden, keep us in rejection of ourselves. And it really just boils down to such a simple remedy, such a simple fix, which your book is absolutely addressing, to help children
Yes,
embrace and
it is kind of a simple fix, in fact. I mean, we have had a history of trying to make sensitive and neurodivergent children conform to what we think society is expecting of them. And really what that did is send a message to all of us who were raised like that, to conform, that the way we were naturally was wrong somehow. And it is so incredible how that affects people. Like, I work with a lot of autistic women, and just incredible women, just brilliant, successful in their careers. But they carry the same message that I have also, that I've been working to shift myself, is there's something wrong with me, and I want you to tell me how I can change so that I can fit into the neurotypical world. And they're still having that message of, I need to change, so there's something wrong with me. And I'm giving them the message, there isn't something wrong with you. You don't actually need to change. That we instead need to educate about some of our different ways of communicating, some of our different types of needs, and embracing the fact, just like we do in neurodiversity, like we're talking about the fish and how amazing it is to have all these different kinds of beautiful fish, how much we accept that in the natural world. And I see such a huge difference in, basically, if you take two people, think about this as like two children. Let's say they're twins, so that we can, have this similar experience. So one of them is getting the message that they're flawed in life and that they need to change who they are. The other one is celebrated for who they are. They're honored, they're accepted, they're embraced. How do we think they're going to enter into the world, experience the world? It's going to be completely different, because that feeling of being flawed is like 1,000-pound weight on top of you, everything that you do. It affects literally everything that you do. It prevents you from your light shining bright. And then there are some kids who are raised with parents who are very supportive, with caretakers, with people around them. They're very supportive of their uniqueness. And those kids are so remarkable. They don't have that feeling flawed holding them back. And I just think about that, Willow. Like, imagine if you had that message, if I had that message, that we didn't have to carry that weight, because it is hard to change that feeling flawed piece. It's hard. It's like so seeped into your bones because it's your inner child. It's stuff that you learned with a child's brain.
Right. Yes, absolutely. 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 And it's such a, when you think about those two children and the messages that they got, it just how clearly you can see the difference that makes, the trajectory of their lives. And when I think about my own experience and my own programming, maybe you experience the same thing. But because I've been observing this for so long, and I've been so intrigued by identifying what's mine and what isn't mine, what's the real truth of me and what isn't the truth of me. In other words, what's the conditioning that I've taken on that's causing me pain and difficulties and suffering that doesn't actually need to be the case. And the more that I've observed that, the more I've been able to identify this haunting echo of worry or anxiety or rejection that I'm running. And over the years, the more I've been able to see, actually, that's actually nothing to do with me. That doesn't actually identify with me. And that has been probably one of the greatest breakthroughs, I think, is depowering that and learning not to feed that and to trust and honor what I can feel is really me. And I think what's so amazing about what your book is going to be doing is by making sure that that's set in place already, so a child can actually grow up feeling and owning and loving what's actually theirs without that sense of rejection or something being wrong.
Yeah, letting them naturally shine brightly, because they do without those messages that something's wrong. And being able to relate to the characters, like we're doing it so that each character, and also we're doing a series so that we can cover different things in each book. So we're covering, some of the sensory stuff, some of the overwhelm stuff, and we want to normalize it, because I think that's such an important piece of it. Normalize, validate, give tools and support, because and parents and caretakers, teachers, educators, practitioners listening, everybody that's listening right now, I think that if we can share that message, that we can do that with children. I think about, Willow, can you imagine a whole generation of sensitive neurodivergent children being raised with this acceptance and understanding and support? Like, wow, the sky is the limit for how that could change the world. Because it really, because there's not going to be those things holding us back, or it's going to just affect everything. You probably see that a lot in the people that you work with wanting to start businesses and become coaches and things, and the things that have to be overcome to do that. The fear, it's difficult to step out of fear, and it's difficult to be vulnerable when we think something's wrong with us. And even the feeling of, connection, because connection comes through vulnerability. And I know for myself, I used to think there was something wrong with me for most of my life, that I thought, why can't I just truly connect with people? I felt like there was something wrong, that I couldn't connect. And the reason I couldn't connect is because I wasn't my true self. I was masking. I was being what people told me I needed to be, but that wasn't the real me. And so, learning about being autistic, learning about high sensitivity, that has completely transformed my life, because now I don't have to hide those parts of me. And it's to hear from, I really want to say thank you to the listeners who have written in about how different episodes have impacted you. It's something that how it supported you. It's made such a difference that you've shared the podcast, that you've reviewed it. And Willow, I saw statistics that the podcast is in the top 1.5% globally right now.
Amazing.
I mean, that is showing you we're everywhere. We're all over the world, and people are hungry for this information that is telling them that they are beautiful as they are, that their sensitivity is needed in the world.
Absolutely. And again, just how important, the people with the trait are. I think this is what's really happening in the world right now. And as you say, how what it would be like for a generation of HSPs to grow up without that conditioning that there's something wrong. It's like a beautiful seed being blown into the world that's intended by nature to settle and grow a whole new perspective and beautiful input into the world as it's meant to be. Where you've got HSPs that are able to speak up in corporate environments, when they're at work, when they're bringing businesses in, when they're challenging how leadership works. Suddenly they're just super comfortable with saying, hey, I see this differently. What do you think about that? Rather than this continuous sort of self-diminishing that's really going on at the moment.
Yes, I love that you brought that up. That's one of my favorite things to hear about, is something that we've talked about helps people get that level of confidence that they can walk into a situation, whether it's work or personal, and confidently ask for what they need, advocate for what they need, own themselves and their real, true, authentic selves. And the more that starts to shine, then their light just gets brighter. And we know what a difference that's going to make, because sensitive people in leadership positions tend to be incredible and very collaborative, very good at looking at the broad picture, learning, where people's talents lie. It's not an authoritarian situation. It is what the world needs right now. We absolutely need that. And I think that it's just going to be incredible to imagine what can happen in the world as we get more and more people getting rid of that feeling of being flawed, and instead have self-compassion for their experiences and their challenges and their differences, and celebration of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also what is so powerful, especially about the invitation to allow children to talk about their experience more openly. I think that in itself is hugely powerful. What I have found over the years of working with HSPs is what the greatest breakthrough that they have is being able to have the conversation that they've always wanted to have about how they really feel, what they're really seeing, what they're really experiencing, what they've always thought and felt, but never been having the invitation or opportunity or really feeling safe to do that. I think if children are given the safe environment to really express how they're feeling and to be able to say, I was there at school, this was happening, and I was seeing this, and this was how I was feeling this, but the other children around me didn't seem to see that or experience that. And to be able to give them that permission to say, yes, and that's who you are, and that's beautiful, that's okay. For the child to go, oh, wow, okay, so I see that's that. And suddenly they're building a relationship with this amazing part of themselves that they then can then develop and grow with, rather than having to come to you or me when they're like 40 or 50 saying, what is happening? Can I talk to you about what's going on? I just think, that in itself is probably one of the greatest gifts, I think.
Yeah, I bet we both get to experience this thing too about when we're working with clients is like when I meet somebody at the beginning of working with me versus they've been working with me for a little while. That is one of my favorite things because I literally can see their light get brighter. And they
Right.
feel it, and people around them notice it. And I just think that it's like worth all the challenges I've had in my life to experience that with someone. It just really
Right.
is. You know?
I completely agree. It is. It's an incredible experience to facilitate that, and it's life changing, right? To see someone meet themselves in that way.
Yeah. Such a beautiful thing. And the light is so beautiful too. It's like, yeah, it's going to be fun to continue to create these characters, because so many of them are animals that have been in my life, and Juju represents me as a child. So there's like a scene where they want to get away from like the loud, busy city and go to this peaceful sunflower farm, and then they meet these other sensitive animals, and they all have a moment where they lay in the grass looking up at the sky and watching the clouds. And that was something I used to do as a kid. But I want to bring this back to children, that these kinds of things are such a beautiful way to experience childhood. Like, we don't have to be so busy. I remember raising my kids, there was so much pressure to, you got to have them in this and this and this after school programs and this and this and this. And I mean, kids were just so burnt out. They were not having this creative, quiet time to, discover themselves. And I love the concept of giving children these experiences in nature. And just, I can remember doing that still to this day, just laying in the grass, watching the clouds go by, looking at the different shapes, and, normalizing that and celebrating that with kind of kindred spirits together.
Yes, my goodness me, yeah.
Did you do that
Such
in your childhood? Did you do stuff like that?
yeah. That whole kind of interconnection and blissing out in nature, was probably one of the most important parts of my experience, and still is. And I think this sort of opens up into really what the importance of the trait and what it represents in this way is that we have the ability to connect and immerse at that level, which I think is it's representing a part of our perception that is really fundamental to our relationship with the world, and how we are meant to be in harmony with the ecosystem, and the part of us as HSPs that really gets that and sees that, because we're seeing more deeply into the fabric of things. So we're almost representing, we're being ambassadors for nature, and what the balance really means for humans to be successful, for humankind to have a good chance of being successful over the next few generations. I think as HSPs, we're here to really share that with the world and to bring balance to the world, but because we can see that connection with nature so clearly.
I feel like my connection with nature saves my life always. It's so profound for me to connect with it. It becomes my daily experience, that is how it's like every time I'm connecting in nature, just in this really solitude experience, it's like I can feel myself exhale. I can feel my nervous system balance. And it's been something that it helps me do all the things that I want to do in life. And I can't skip it, and I don't want to. It's my favorite part of who I am, is my connection to nature, my connection to animals. like Herman. I sent you those videos of Herman catching fish off my kayak.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
That,
a green heron that I have befriended that I absolutely love.
they're amazing, those videos, amazing. But what did you mean by that? Because that's really interesting. When you say that being in nature helps you to do the things that you want to do in life, what's that connection there? I find that, because I have that too.
Well,
Go on.
I think for so many of us, and certainly I'll speak for myself, I have a lot of sensory, I can get sensory overload very easy living in a suburban or city environment. Um, and there's just, even the noise levels, people doing construction, there's just constant gardening noise. There's just so much sensory overload that it's almost like if you imagine a bucket inside of us that fills up very quickly. Like my bucket can fill up very quickly where I can reach a level of exhaustion and burnout. And we've talked about burnout before. And nature completely empties that container, and it makes me feel, gosh, it's even hard to put into words sometimes. It makes me feel connected. It makes me feel connected to myself. It makes me feel joy. I feel intense joy. Like I've been watching these baby seagulls on these roofs, and I don't know if I told you this, but I was actually swimming in the lagoon and saw, I swim in the lagoon that I watch all these fish and creatures. Family
Yeah.
members like, you swim in there? Aren't you afraid of the stingrays? I was like, well, just don't step on the stingrays and then you're okay.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I grew up in lakes and stuff in Minnesota, so I'm used to being in those environments. And I saw these baby seagulls on another roof, and it was just, these things bring me such joy, Willow. It's the level of intense joy for me every day is this experience with nature.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So it's that alignment that happens. I get that too. There's just, as soon as I kind of submerse under into this new dimension of with my face mask on, it's just this instant like, wow, my whole being is just completely taken over by this shift. And all I've done is gone like about a foot lower, into this. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's the cold of the water that must help, but it's also just this. But I agree. I have the same thing. It's just an instant high feeling of joy and connection and immersion that happens. And
Yeah, so do that more with children and do that more as adults. And, like people that do that on a regular basis, meaning every single day, that becomes part of, like a lot of, we talk about the power of slow mornings and how that, if you're not racing into the day, that keeps your nervous system more balanced. And so many wrote in and told me about how they, maybe they take their cup of coffee or tea and sit on their porch and listen to the birds or connect to the squirrels or, something or trees, go to a park nearby. And everybody that talks about it from that place that it's like, it's such a profound, almost spiritual experience for us. And I think that is part of the gifts of our sensitivities, that we get to experience it in these profound ways. Like I was telling my neighbor about the seagull babies, and I could tell he was like, he doesn't care. I was so excited about it. It's like, I know that I get to experience this with such joy.
Yeah, amazing, and I think that's a good example of how this flawed piece works. Is when we share something of importance like that with someone else, and if we experience some kind of rejection about that, or it's not received in the way that we hope it can be, or that we feel it should be, then if we've received that program that there's something wrong, then we're going to internalize that, and then we're going to kind of hide our experience more and feel more isolated, versus what you're bringing into the world through your book is by helping children to grow up recognizing that, yes, there may be a difference in the way they're experiencing the world, but there's nothing wrong with that. So when they're meeting the world around them, they're meeting those experiences, and they're getting that reflection or feedback from the world around them. It's not affecting their identity. They're just aware that it's a different opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Wow. Willow, when you talked about affecting identity, that really hit something, because that is exactly what happens when we grow up being told we need to change and conform, that it completely affects identity. And for some people, I'm almost like, I'm trying to think about myself too, and I think about how people perceived me and how I thought I needed to be in order to be liked, to be accepted, to fit in. And it became, and I know so many people listening are also experiencing that. There's like this chatter. Well, we've talked about this, about that clipboard person that is always
Yeah.
with us, that's like judging everything.
Yeah.
Do they think that you're weird? You should have said that differently. Look at their reaction, something that's always this mental chatter. But I've noticed that mental chatter is dimming now that I understand the autistic piece of me. It just filled in the blanks for so many things. And also, a lot of people are getting misdiagnosed with things that they don't have, personality disorders, things that are incredibly difficult to, they get the wrong treatment, the wrong information, the stigma of something that isn't their real true experience because a practitioner doesn't understand. And so there's just so many things compounded on that. So not only are you feeling flawed, but you're getting told that something's wrong with you, and you're, maybe even getting treated with medicine that might be even harming you because it isn't actually what you have or what your experience is. There's just so many layers to this that causes problems. But it's like, I just think about all these children that can. And I think that there are so many parents out there and caregivers and educators that want this information, that want to know how to support sensitive children. And I think it's going to be profound for them to raise these children, to be a part of their future. Like, honestly, sometimes it takes one adult in a child's life to accept you. I had a grandfather who was that for me. He died when I was a young teen. But I remember, because I felt so flawed all the time, I just always felt like there was something wrong with me. But I remember he made me feel special. He used to take me to out to eat, like on Sundays, to some kind of a brunch place where he knew all the waitresses, and he would proudly say, "This is my granddaughter." And I just remember having this feeling like I seemed important to him. And that was probably one of the few people that I felt that in my early days.
Amazing. And what a difference it makes. Because I love that. And, it's so simple going out for a meal like that. But what's being reflected is so powerful because there's such acceptance and love that's happening, that's being received. And I think when we're really in that formative part of our lives, we really need that at that point, because we're trying to figure out, what are my values? What do I care about? Who am I really? And having that loving reflection back that, yes, all of that's wonderful in you. All of that's great. Keep going with that. You're doing great. I think that is so essential in those formative parts of our lives.
Yeah. And we can be ourselves with people that make us feel that way about ourselves, that we're loved and accepted as we are. I remember I used to go to his house after school, and he had this candy drawer, and who knows how long that candy had been in there, because it was like half melted. I remember trying to like pull out the candy. It was all stuck together. Funny memories that we had. And he had all these little trinkets that I used to play with. And yeah, he never made me feel like I was doing something wrong, or like, it just so accepted me as I was. And I remember he was one of the few people in my early life where I really felt like I was myself. Besides animals, I've always felt like I was myself around animals.
Amazing. Amazing. It's, as we were saying at the beginning, it's these parts of life shouldn't be rare. It should just be the norm. It should be the default setting, especially for HSPs, HSP children, that we start to get that experience of ourselves that we need early on. It's such a simple shift of acceptance. And I think it's also interesting, that you're getting the HSP parents that are coming back, and hopefully it's going to help them to recognize and own and love their own differences, and how they can, start to model that for their own children more.
Yeah, I hadn't really even considered how the book was going to affect adults in this way until I started hearing from them. And it's so neat. Like, so many of them are like, I bought 10 copies. I'm going to give them to my library, my school, my friend who has a neurodivergent kid. And I'm just like thinking, wow, this is exactly what sensitive people do. They know how to take care of, to care for others, to make a difference, to help others. And that is so beautiful, Willow, isn't it? Bringing my tears
really
to
is.
my eyes.
Yeah, it is absolutely beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
It really
Sensitive
is.
people are so beautiful. Their hearts are so beautiful, right? I mean, isn't that something that's, can you imagine the ripple effect of that? That it's almost like that one person who decides to donate a book. They imagine like the children that will, whether it's in a library or a school, or like that one sensitive person has now impacted many others. And just, I think about the ripple effect of that.
That is just profound to think of that. What that could mean, the shift it could make in one child's perception about themselves, and the effect that could have to their lives, and the change that they could make as a result of that. It's just mind-blowing to think of the effect
It makes me feel like we hold each other, like we'd hold each other with love, this as sensitive beings. It's just who we are. And what a beautiful example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you are, without question. And what an amazing accomplishment to have created this and to have it out there right now. Just wonderful.
Yeah. So what else is going on in your life? What else have you been thinking about?
Well, it's a great question. I think much of what I think about in the work that I do is the real potential of HSPs, that we have this, as you say, we have this such beautiful heart, and we have this such amazing connection with nature, but there's also this such power in us to want to create change and want to bring new messages forwards. That sort of calling that we have in our hearts that's guided you to create the work that you do in the world, and what's guiding me to do my work, and wanting to encourage people to come forwards more. I think that's what's really been on my mind recently, is giving HSPs that excitement and self-awareness to step up and start to do the work that they really want to do, to write the book they want to write, or create the course that they want to create, or the business they want to create, whatever it may be. But just to really encourage them to embrace that difference and come forwards and really develop that.
Yeah, you're such a good guide for that too, because you have that loving container that you give people. It's just like, I think that's really profound what you offer that. And I've seen that in you even as a friend, that's the kind of person you are, that you, like when I was going through some difficult times, you showed up. You were like, how can I support you? Let's talk it through. I was like crying to you, and you were just, I can't do that with everybody. And the fact that you create that space for people that you can just feel the caring that comes off of you and how you support people.
Oh, thank you so much. That's wonderful. Really special to hear that. Thank you. Yeah, it means the world to me to be able to do that, to hold that space. I don't think it's hard to see our own. I mean, this is the point. It's sometimes it's hard to see our own gifts and abilities in this way until someone actually reflects it back to us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what HSPs need so much, is for someone to do that and to say, this is really special what you do, and this is what you could potentially do with that.
I've seen people come out of your program and to like start doing events in their field, in their like the field that they always wanted to be in, and they are shining in these new ways. And the fact that they're also doing events that are like helping others, that becomes a ripple effect. It's almost like I wonder if it's a similar feeling of what we experience when we see our children launch, from the love that we've given them, when they launch into the world and because honestly, it does just take that one person, and you are so open and embracing. So many people don't have that in their lives where they're open and embracing. You give that to them, that their ideas are not weird or different or wrong. It's like, I just think about how stifled people can be sometimes when, they have all these beautiful intuitive gifts, but maybe in their family or the people around them have, think that's weird or woo woo or out there or something. And, then they don't have that confidence. So they're feeling flawed, like something's wrong with them, even though they have these incredible gifts that need to come out. And you're sprinkling that into their world to give them that boost where they can then, launch into the world and shine that light brightly. Again, here's another ripple effect that occurs when that happens.
Yes, yeah, I love it. I love how you put that. Absolutely. I just think that is, it's the greatest gift I feel that we can really give to people that have something special. It's that hidden part that is, that is under the experience of feeling flawed, and just seeing this potential and what's possible. There's nothing that makes my heart sing more than reflecting that for someone and helping them to see how important it is, and for them to then trust that and run with it and do something with it. It's that for me is the most, the most just valuable experience, I think, to support that.
Yeah, really valuable. One of my sons is visiting right now on his summer break, and he has a friend visiting here with us for a week, and it's been really fun to see him interacting with his close friend. And his friend's been telling me like, oh, he's my best friend. And you could just tell that like my boys are such wonderful examples of what happens when you're raised, loved, and supported for who you are, because they don't walk around in the world feeling flawed. And I always find it kind of amazing because it's so different than my experience in the world when I was that age. And to see how they impact their friends and the people around them. Oh, he actually had a couple friends come over too, and it was kind of fun to see the interactions and to see my son's confidence and kindness and what a beautiful heart he has be something that is experienced by his friends. And it's a really beautiful thing to see as a parent.
I mean, that is, that's the real, the real affirmation of the work that you've done, to be able to, for someone to reflect to you their experience of your sons. Yeah, it's amazing. That's a testament to what you've achieved with them. Absolutely amazing. And why you're so born to write this book for children.
Yeah, that would have been a great book to have when I was a kid. I could imagine, even if I had nobody in my life that was, I don't know, loving me and my sensitivities, I think I would have imagined I would have just like gone to sleep with that book. It would have been
Yes,
like, I would have been holding it. It'd be like, these are my friends, and the characters are my friends, and they love and support me as I am. They love me as I am. I could just imagine that feeling, and I even if that happens to one child, that is worth everything.
absolutely. It really is. It really is. Yes, it really is. Wow, amazing! How very exciting, and I'm so looking forward to watching this, watching the word grow, and the more feedback that you get from people's experiences of the book. I'm very excited to hear how all this unfolds.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to think about.
Yeah.
Uplifting, sensitive, neurodivergent children, adults, all of it to get that message. Oftentimes it's just that one message, isn't it, Willow? Do you have any early messages like that you could think of in your life where you felt loved and as who you were? Was that, even if it was a fleeting, do you have any experiences like that you could think of that I don't know, it could even
Um,
be from a book or from somebody in your life?
hmm.
When is the first time you felt that?
Yeah, it's interestingly, my grandfather was also a very important part of my life. He was an avid carpenter, and he taught me carpentry from a very young age. And I used to spend a lot of time in his workshop. He always had a workshop nearby, and I think that was some of the the real loving messaging that I got through. That because he was very patient, and he was very encouraging for me to try new things, and was very rewarding, and he trusted me because some of the tools that we had around were quite dangerous, and obviously he was very careful in how what I was allowed to touch and what I was allowed to play with, but I think he really helped me to trust my competence, and the way that I mean, it's very simple. We're just making very simple things together, which actually became quite complicated over the years, because I worked with him right up into my 20s. I think when he died, I think I must have been maybe my late 20s, I think, when he died. Um, and we did a lot of work together. We actually went into business together, where we used to renovate properties together. Well, I mean, he wasn't kind of in business per se, but he was almost like a kind of a mentor, or an advisor on the within the projects that I was working on. But he played a huge part in bringing his expertise and his life experience into the projects that I was doing. And he actually led me into that part of my career. So that was a huge input for me, because it started really young, and it taught me that I could trust myself, and I think one of the main things that he taught me was that there's always a way. That was something that he would constantly say when we'd come across a problem, whatever it may be. When working on a staircase, or something to do with the roof or something, and there'll be a problem, and it would seem insurmountable, and he would say to me, "There is always a way."
Oh,
And he was right. There was always a way. And he would say, if you take the time and you think it through, you will find the way. And he was absolutely right. And I think that I think I really took that on board. Whenever there is something that seems insurmountable, there is always a way.
what a powerful message to receive. There's always a way. I really love
Mm.
that. That's really beautiful. Both of my parents were a lot like that. This is obviously before internet, before you could look up how to do stuff on YouTube, and they had to figure stuff out
Yeah.
themselves. And, for part of the time when we lived on the farm, it was like the stuff that they could do and fix and accomplish, and it was inspiring. I still use my mom for a lot of inspiration when I'm working on something. I was building this we're putting together this chair. I like to actually put things together, and I was putting together this chair when I first moved, and the directions were horrible, had everything was wrong and labeled wrong. And I was like, oh my gosh, this just seems impossible. But I just kept on channeling her. It's like she could do anything. We used to joke that she was magic. She could just touch something and it would be fixed. And
Wow.
from, combine farm equipment to the dishwasher to plumbing, electrical, I mean, anything. They they could just do it. And I just find that inspiring. And I think I've used that for a lot of things in my life. I think we can use some of our challenges and the really hard times we've been through to sort of draw what am I trying to say, energy from, the ability, resilience, the ability to do something, just to remind ourselves that it's possible and that we can. I really love that. That's a beautiful gift to have received from your grandfather. What a neat story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a special man. Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, you're right. It is wonderful having those role models around us that that really help to bring those pieces out. And I think it does come back to identity, really, I think, because those people are reflecting parts of us that are already there. As your mother had that ability to do that, she's also helping you to own that part of yourself that you can fix anything or kind of get creative with your hands. And I think it's really important that we I think it's hugely important that we give our children the right guidance, but also to give them the right arena to really trust their gifts and to explore themselves and to really embrace their abilities. And especially as HSPs, to be given that arena to be able to try things out and trust this ability that we have to see things more deeply and to play with that and develop that.
Yeah, to shift the messages. Like I remember my oldest son, when he first went into like preschool, kindergarten, we got messages from the teacher. It was like, oh, he's so shy, and it was like there was such a negative connotation to the fact that he took time to warm up, that he actually observed first. And even those kinds of messages, that we don't automatically want to label someone that something's wrong with them, because sensitive people do tend to be observers. We watch first, and we have a way of doing things that gathers information before we act. And I think that that's absolutely needed. There's a reason why we're like that in the world, and not pathologizing that we don't want everybody to be the same. We want everyone to be embraced for who they are, to be accepted for who they are. And that's one of the messages we're giving in the book too, because that's important to give that message, that it's okay to hold back and observe for a while. You're gathering data.
Yeah, goodness me, and how important that is. And
we gather a lot of data, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and to be taught the value of that, I think is very important, because later in life, that will be hugely applicable in many situations to stand back and see the bigger picture, especially in leadership. My goodness me.
Yes.
But especially when you've got that, where they're starting to realize that where you've got the highly competitive, hugely successful salesperson that feels like they'd make a really good sales team manager, but they don't. And versus, not that there's anything wrong with being a hugely successful salesperson, my goodness, we need them in the world, but it takes a slightly different observational skill set to be able to see how the team operates as a whole, what everybody's needs are, the way they're different, how everybody has different aspirations that they're pursuing, and how you can support a team in that way by stepping back and seeing the bigger picture, versus saying everybody's got to do this and we've all got to behave in the same way, and you just end up with lots of people leaving because it's not it's not seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah, definitely.
This is
What a fun conversation. I think there's so much we could be saying about this, and I want to hear from listeners too. Like, how did this resonate with you? What do you want to know more about that we can talk about? We really love hearing from you. Really appreciate the reviews and sharing the podcast and leaving comments on it and writing to us. We love all of that. It helps us keep going. And for those that are interested in getting the children's book, you can go to sensitiveniko.com. Niko is with a K, Niko, and check it out. Love to hear from you about that. And Willow, what would you like to share today? Anything that you want to share?
Yes, again, thank you for being with us on this podcast episode. It's wonderful to have all the support, and as I say, to hear from you means so much to us. Suggestions about what you'd like us to talk about, of course. If you'd like to find out more about what I do, you can check out highsensoryintelligence.com. I'm all about supporting HSPs to really bring their abilities and purpose into the world, and we're all about training and supporting you to really bring that into manifest, whether it's to be a coach or to be any kind of business or purpose that you want to bring forwards. We have such belief in you that you have an amazing message and service to bring into the world, and the results that can bring are profound. So highsensoryintelligence.com, you can book a call. You can check out the resources that we have there, and we'd love to work and support you in any way we can.
Yeah, wonderful. And it's amazing what you can accomplish in the world when you have somebody that stands by you and supports you. And Willow's great for that.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
put everything in the show notes too, for anyone that wants to have the links to what we talked about. And I just want to thank everybody for listening. And I hope that there's a part of you that is changing that narrative away from feeling flawed and more into your true, beautiful, sensitive self, that you are exactly what we need in the world, exactly as you are. And I hope that these messages start to sink in and you really start to feel that. And we'd love to hear from you. And take care, everybody. It was fun talking with you, Willow. Until next week, we'll see you then.
Great to see you. See you next time. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.